No.
This YouTube presentation is going to be a little bit different this time. Recently, I tried to write to somebody in the music business because I thought that I'd found this person's email online. This is a person of considerable influence and has had a lot of success. Anyway, I thought I had the email because it was there on the screen. And then when I opened it this morning to try and send the letter that I had written, I realized that the name there, the name was the correct name, but it was somebody else who had the same name. So I'd put a lot of time into this letter, and I thought, well, I'll just make it an open letter to any person out there who's a person of note in the world of music. And this is how it went. Open letter to a person of note in the world of music. Pardon my uninvited intrusion into your life. My own life is loaded to the gills with things that have to be attended to, and I am a complete unknown. How a person at your level of public exposure manages to cope with demands for attention, I have no idea. Nonetheless, I thought I might as well give it a go, given that we share at least one significant thing in common: involvement in the world of music from way back when. Your accomplishments are the stuff of contemporary legend. Mine, though not artistically insignificant, are all but unknown to South Africans these days. I didn't plan for it to come out that way when I joined the crew of a yacht sailing from Cape Town to Rio back in 1972. In fact, I spent decades stewing about it, waiting for the other shoe to drop that almost did, but didn't. But now that I'm on the verge of turning 77, and a little bit wiser, I realize that I'm extremely lucky that things turned out the way they did. There is no back home for me. I had an interesting and rich early life in South Africa, but it would have been too confining for me to have spent the next 50 years there. The big world beckoned, and I went looking for anything it had to offer, including living in Brazil, Colombia, New York City, Seattle, and ultimately a tiny mountain town in eastern Oregon, where I now reside with my wife and 33-year partner in all things good and bad, Rachel Christensen. Our home is a 105-year-old, currently mothballed café, without grid-provided electrical power. We rely on solar. The rest of our family includes 4 adopted cats and 2 volunteer-laying chickens. They came from next door. We have, by one happenstance or another, acquired 3 centenarian pianos, the sad result of newer generations being unable to play them, which, owing to our being so far from any towns of size, I have to maintain and tune myself. I had to do this so that Rachel and I could work on the music we create together. Being a maven in the world of music, you might be pleased to learn that it was music that sealed the deal between Rachel and me back in 1991, and music that has been the cornerstone of our life together ever since, through lean times and abundant. The song of mine that started it all was Down in Africa, not the one everybody knows by Toto, called Rains Down in Africa. The song of mine that best describes everything that has happened since we met is called The Lucky Suite. Both songs can be found with a browser search on the internet, should you wish to check on the veracity of that. All well and good, you might say, but why are you writing to me? the answer involves the not-so-good side of the story, which I don't often talk about, at least publicly. My determination to remain in America, while I kept at trying to make it as a songwriter-performer, did not sit well with my father. We never discussed it, but the lack of any kind of encouragement or affirmation was sufficient for me to know. The full extent of that disapproval was made clear only after he died, and it was discovered that he had struck any mention of me, his only son, from his will. The seriousness and the severity of that decision did not seem to appall the rest of the family. On the contrary, the complete lack of communication from any of them during the 10 years that have ensued since then, he died in 2015, suggests they concurred with him on the rebuke that harsh action conveyed. They certainly made out better for it, I should add. My great offense was not in having come to America to try my hand at securing a career in the creative side of music. It was in not having succeeded at it and given them something to be proud of, plain and simple. People are quick to model their own judgment of a person on what they glean from how the world appears to have responded to that person's chosen quest. My take on this isn't something I just took the liberty of assuming. I was warned about it in an email by a family friend a couple of years before my father's death. So you can probably understand why I might yet like to see those negative assumptions upended by the release of a critically acclaimed record that gets good, solid numbers. It isn't wanting to make money that fuels this desire. We're doing so well with our self-managed stock portfolio that we are more than a little uncomfortable about it, knowing that lots of good people across the world are losing their livelihoods to the very advantages that we are heavily invested in. At the same time, the cash cost of the lifestyle we have carefully fostered over the past decade is very low. Of that, half is offset by monthly social security checks. All of the above advantages I get without having to actually work for it, leaving me free to use my energies in other ways you don't get paid for, but are nonetheless good for the world at large and good for one's spirit. Money or no money, what I really want is the recognition I believe I deserve as a songwriter, and more precisely, my work as a songwriter from Cape Town. Should the decades of struggling as a stranger in a strange land at considerable cost to my comfort and contentment count for nothing? Obviously not, from my point of view. Until people in South Africa at large are proud to count me as one of their musical native sons, I shall continue to feel shortchanged. As ballsy a claim as anyone may think that to be, I stand by it. If I could experience but a smidgen of that type of acknowledgement, it would change a lot of things for the better, not just for me and Rachel, but for lots of other people as well, on both sides of the Atlantic. In this age of elevating the obtuse, the inverse, and the counternatural, what I write by way of music may not be currently in vogue. So what? Most of what is in vogue is transient, forgettable, and unpleasing to those whose musical preferences were developed in the decades before 2000, and they are still very much alive. What I write is exactly the opposite of that, specifically made to be liked and remembered regardless of one's age. What precisely you could do to help me achieve the goal I laid out above, I have no idea. All I know is that it is not nothing. I'm not connected, and you are. A good beginning, I suppose, would be for you to listen to the Lucky Suite. It's on the internet, and see whether you can recall anybody from Cape Town having written anything like it. I sent it to my friend, big name, but for the sake of discretion, I won't say it, in New York. He is a master of general percussion. Doubtless you've heard of him. He thought it lent itself to his adding his own touches to it. I consider that a high compliment. It would be interesting to see how an extra touch like that would work out. Beyond the above, I guess there's nothing worth adding. If you do end up actually reading this, be assured of my gratitude. Just knowing that you know what is in this letter, if nothing else, will be of value to me. If not, I'll do what I always do, take it in stride, and move on to whatever lies ahead. All the best. Peter Renlow, formerly Peter Whale. That's the letter. That's the, should we say, altered version of the letter I wrote to this person. We are not doing as well with views for the Lucky Suite as we were doing earlier. So, I don't know whether it's the suggestion algorithm that works for YouTube that has not presented it to people who might like to hear it. But anyway, it just stopped at 235 views, which I thought was rather odd after it had been going along quite nicely. So more views on that, they would be greatly appreciated. And I would also like to add that we still have copies of the album for the record one, which is a review of past songs that I had submitted to record companies. Of course, they didn't get accepted, but they are good songs. And our redo of them, of the quality of them and the mixing, I think was a very good job. So just, if anybody's interested in that, then they could get in touch with us. Okay, all right, we have some other video stuff, but this is what I wanted to convey with this video. Thanks, bye.